Alright, hey everyone, I'm just a noob trying to learn from my mistakes. I just want to teach you, or show you, rather, both teach and show, whatever. I want to help you guys make MIDI cables if you want to make them. So I just did this one. It's great. These Switchcraft plugs are kind of tricky, so let me just walk you through it if you need some advice there. So anyway, obviously first just take the whole thing apart. Okay, there's all these little components. Just going to run through this fast with you. Okay, so I already made one end, so I know I want this end to connect in a certain way over there. Anyway, we'll get to that in a minute. First of all, 1 inch. Just cut 1 inch back. That's important. Any more or less, and you run into a little issue here. So try to stick to 1 inch. Okay, at this point, what we want to do, don't forget, put this black sleeve back on. You're going to want to do that, okay? Don't worry about messing up the ground wire. We'll get to that. All right, so slide that on there. And the other thing you want to do at this point, if you want to do any heat shrink, put that on as well. Okay, so here's the deal. You don't need all this ground wire. In fact, it's harmful for the technique if you do. So I'm just going to take like maybe a third of it, a quarter of it, I don't know. It's like that much of it. I'm going to keep that. I'm going to throw away that. Okay, now going to twist it up. I'm going to strip the ends off of these. I'm going to just take a tiny little bit off. You don't need a lot at all off of these guys. Okay, at this point, don't forget this little metal sleeve there. Now, your MIDI cable might be a little bit different, but mine, this copper looking goldish thing, cannot fit over this black part, so I have to just put it over these. Okay, so I'm getting something like that. And then in a little bit, I'm going to heat shrink that back up to kind of make that secure. Okay, so anyway, at this point, what I want to do is I want to make sure all of these are as straight and pointy without any frays as possible. Okay, they look pretty good. So at this point, I'm just going to tin them. Just put a little bit of solder on each one. Okay. All right, you don't need a lot on here, especially the ground wire. Don't let the solder, go all the way up that wire. You don't need that much, okay? Just the tip. Now, at this point, we're going to do the same kind of thing. We're going to tin this MIDI plug here. You see these? This MIDI plug has these. Let's see if it'll focus on it. These 5. Well, it's not focusing, but anyway, these are hollow plugs. They're tiny little holes. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to just fill them up with solder. Now, it doesn't matter what color goes in what hole, so it really doesn't. The only thing is when you're making custom cables, they just have to be consistent. So for me, I've already written this up and I've already determined that the color scheme is as follows. So I'm just going to follow that. So that's kind of how I want it to be: black, red, ground, white, green. So anyway, I'll start with the black. Start in a clockwise motion. I find that kind of helps if you're right-handed anyway. And then so basically I'm just going to like hold this with my left hand and then hold the soldering iron with my right hand and just reflow the solder on these little points, and very carefully just stick this little black end in this lug here. Once it melts, just lift off, and bam, you've got your first solder connection that is pretty solid. There's nothing, there's no like little extra wire hanging out. Because these are such in close proximity, you want to make sure that, you know, it's shielded as much as possible. Okay, so then as you go along, some of these might get a little bit harder to do just with your hand. Let's try to do the red one. Actually, that's going to be hard. So, because of the angle of this, basically I have these like little needle nose plier, tiny little things. So just grab it, make it a little bit easier to manipulate, and then just get it juicy. Stick it in there. Take the soldering iron off. Don't get it too hot. Don't hold it too long. You're gonna melt the coating around the wire. Okay, so now that's all wired up. And it's looking good. So again, sorry it's not focusing, but not a lot of you know, the covering goes all the way to the end, which is great so that it won't accidentally contact another lug or anything like that. So anyway, that's that. Then we a little bit of this action, a little bit of heat shrink if you're type A like me. We could pull the sleeve back up and over this part, making sure not to put too much pressure on any of those points you just soldered. It's kind of hard sometimes. Right. Okay, so now it kind of looks like that, and now you just want to, you know, figure out the orientation, how you want these plugged in. And I kind of want the opposite of what that is doing, so we'll see if I can achieve that. And so if you did it right, and you only kind of cut off like an inch, you should wind up with just enough wire not to get in the way of that screw. If you do too much excess, you'll kind of get in the way of that. And if you do not enough, this won't fit in there. So 1 inch is a perfect amount. Then you just close her up. There you go. Look at that MIDI cable brilliantness. And then test it. And if it's good, then hey, you're good. That's it.